Greetings and welcome to the latest edition of the Entheogenic Evolution podcast. As always, I'm your host Martin, and I'm very happy to have you with me today. For this week's episode, I'm joined by Jeffrey Stevens from Psyched Wellness discussing their new product, Calm, which is an amanita extract of muscimol, which they are primarily marketing as a sleep aid, which I can attest is helpful. As I'm sure many of you, my listeners, know, I do have a chronic sleep disorder, and I'm always interested in trying something new that might help a little bit, and I'm happy to say that their product Calm does help a little bit. I have a pretty severe condition, so it's nothing like anything is a magic bullet for me in any way, shape, or form, but I've definitely enjoyed using the product, so we talk a lot about that in our conversation and my own experiences with sleep and how I've found Calm to help. Unfortunately, we did record this a couple months ago, and at this point, Psyched Wellness has had to suspend their online sales. Hopefully they'll be coming back soon, but it is a product that I recommend if you have sleep issues, or if you're just interested in trying this amanita extract. I'd never really had any experience with amanita before and found it to be extremely pleasant, but their online sales are suspended for right now. Hopefully they'll be coming back sometime very soon, and you can try it out for yourself if you are so interested. We'll get to that conversation in just a minute, but first, let's get some announcements out of the way, shall we? So, first off, I wanted to let you guys know that there are now 2 spots left. Yes, only 2 spots left in the upcoming Mindscape Psychedelic Institute 5-MeO-DMT Facilitator Training course. We just wrapped up the first batch of students with their 5-month course, and we're going to be looking to start the next one at the end of October, and there are only 2 spots left. It is not my own course, as I've explained many times. I am an instructor for the course. It's being run by Stephen Kirby and his wife Amber of the Unchurched Church in Iowa. And we've got this next batch of students coming in starting in October. If you're interested, I do have a direct link to the course at my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/MartinWBall. And you can link on over there and you can learn more about it. And of course, you can reach out to Stefan and he's happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just like with this last batch of students, I am planning on teaching at least 9 of the weekly courses that happen on Zoom. They're around 2 to 2.5 hours long for each course. Then there's also an optional in-person experiential training that takes place, which we did the other month in Iowa. And also, speaking of Patreon, I've got a new interview with me that I've posted to my Patreon page, which is actually available on Spotify on the Channel of Love. And it is called The Big 5-MeO-DMT Conversation with me, Martin W. Ball. And it's the big conversation because it is actually the longest interview I've ever done. It was 3.5 hours long and only needed to wrap it up because had something else to do after that amount of time. But it was a great conversation. It's on my Patreon page, again, patreon.com/MartinWBall. You can check it out there, find it on Spotify. Also, speaking of Patreon, just want to remind you, it's a great way to support this podcast. There's everything from $1 a month up to $100 a month, with increasing access, bonuses, and cool stuff as you move up the scale. And just want to remind you that if you come in at the $20 a month level and up, you get access to the full Entheogenic Evolution archive, which are old podcast episodes which are no longer available here actively on the podcast. And thought it'd be a good time to mention this again because the other year Podomatic, which is where this podcast is hosted, upped their storage space for my level of pro podcaster that I have over there. So it had been a while since I had to delete any of the old episodes, but I am now at 99% of my storage space, which means probably starting next week, I'm going to have to start moving old episodes of the podcast over to the Entheogenic Evolution archive over at my Patreon page, and those are only available to patrons who pay $20 and up a month. And there's already over 100 hours of old podcast episodes and talks and lectures and all kinds of stuff over there, and it's only going to be increasing because every time I upload a new episode, an old episode is going to have to move over there because the storage space is limited. And to remind you, there is no obligation at Patreon. You can change your level of support anytime you like. You can cancel it anytime you like. You can come back anytime you like. It's all up to you. It's a great way to support me, support this podcast, and the work that I do. And as always, just want to remind you, I'm available for 30, 60, and 90-minute integration calls. Also, I do offer mentoring and feedback for people who are working as facilitators. I specialize in 5-MeO DMT, but I'm not limited to that, and offer a non-dual and energetic perspective on your experiences and your work. You can stop by at www.nondualentheogenicintegration.com if you want more information about that, or just shoot me an email at martinwball@gmail.com, or also stop by at martinball.net, which is my main hub of my web presence, and you can find all my stuff there. Okay, that's it for announcements. Next week, we'll have 2 more chapters from the audiobook of the Solendarian Game. And for now, let's get into this conversation with Jeffrey Stevens from Psyched Wellness. Once again, their online sales are on hold right now, but you can check out their website at psyched-wellness.com. And I will put a link in the notes to the podcast here as well. But let's go ahead and get into this conversation with Jeffrey Stevens. Hope you enjoy. So I'm very excited to welcome on to the Entheogenic Evolution podcast today, Jeffrey Stevens, who is the CEO and director of Psyched Wellness. And I believe you just mentioned that we're connecting in Vancouver, Canada. Is that where you're at today?
Toronto.
Yeah. Sorry, Toronto. Canada, it's all the same. It's up there, right? Sorry, Toronto. And I just wanted to give a full disclosure to my audience as we begin this conversation that Psyched Wellness offers a product called Calm that is an extract from the Amanita mushroom, and it is for sleep. And I have been a customer of Psyched Wellness for the past 2.5 months now, so it is a product that I am personally using. I'm not being paid by Psyched Wellness. This is not like an advertising plug or anything, but I am a customer and just wanted to make that clear to my audience, and perhaps we'll also get into some of my own experiences with it. But Jeffrey, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks so much, and thank you for being a customer, and we appreciate you giving us the airtime and introducing Amanita and Calm to your listening audience. Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about it. That I've had an ongoing chronic sleep disorder for a number of years now, and I'm one of these people that's kind of constantly on the look for where's something that's actually going to help. And I will say that Psyched Wellness, the Calm tincture, it has helped. My situation is very complex. There's a lot of layers to it. When I go talk to sleep doctors, all they say is, "Wow, your case is complicated. We don't know how to help you." So I've kind of been on my own, but we had a preliminary conversation a couple minutes ago, and I was saying that, all of my ads on social media know that I have a sleep disorder. So I get all the latest products, and I've tried a lot of different things. And Psyched is definitely one of the products, or I should say Calm is one of the products that I have noticeably felt and appreciated as being an addition for my nightly routine.
Well, that's great to hear. And as I said earlier, glad that the ads are working and they're targeting people who are looking for solutions and help with that. And, we're glad it works for you as well. It's something, when we started the company, we wanted to do something that could help people. And initially, sort of jumping ahead here, but initially, looking at psychedelics was sort of the first, sector that we were looking at, and all psychedelics, and then narrowed it down to Amanita. And one of the reasons for that was, it had been misunderstood and mislabeled as poisonous. So not a lot of people were working with it. So we had an opportunity to sort of be first movers and, put some, capital behind it, do the studies. But because it was never scheduled as a drug, we were able to bring this forward as a supplement, as a dietary ingredient for people. So that was, for us, the opportunity that really we were most attracted with, because now we could actually do the safety studies, do everything to get this product to market, and not worry about the red tape that people working with psilocybin or DMT or those other compounds had in front of them. So that was really it. It was like, how can we bring something to market that can help people? One of our directors, Professor David Nutt, you may recognize the name. He's probably sort of one of the top 3 guys in the modern renaissance of psychedelics. And his theory was, if we could help people with sleep, that's the umbrella that covers all mental health issues. So if you are working through some mental health issues with a therapist, and then you go home and you're not sleeping well, you're undoing the work that you spent all day doing. So he said, if we can help people sleep, you're sort of, putting that foundation in where they can now attack those other issues as well. So for us, it was kind of like a great opportunity to bring something to market that had, people have been using for 5,000 years, but bring it forward in a safe, standardized fashion that is acceptable in today's marketplace for, the retail landscape and the sort of more above board, if you will, like the traditional retail and online, whether that's brick and mortar or online. So that was the goal of the company when we started.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get back into all of those topics, but I do want to invite you to have the opportunity just to tell a little bit about yourself, your background, and also we could even get into the question of you as being the representative for Psyched Wellness, like here on the podcast, and with the roles you play as CEO and director. But let's just start a little bit about your background and how you got into this area.
Yeah, it's not traditional when you look at sort of the psychedelic space. I came to it from the finance side, from Bay Street. So Bay Street's like a mini Wall Street, and it's our Canadian version. And I had worked for 15 years in institutional sales and trading at various firms. And then about 10 years ago, jumped over to the dark side, where you're working directly with issuers and raising capital and building teams and taking them public. And I had just exited a company and was talking with a group that I'd worked with previously. And they said they wanted to do a deal that focused on psychedelics. So 5 years ago, things were just starting. You were just starting to see companies. I think 2 companies were public before us. And they said, would you be interested? And it looked like a really interesting opportunity. And I thought, yeah, let's go for it. And we put a team together. My colleague and co-founder, David Shizzle, he actually identified Amanita. We knew we didn't want to do psilocybin or ketamine, and for 2 reasons, as I mentioned earlier. They're scheduled. And at the time, there was 15, 20 other companies that were starting to come forward with, we're doing clinical trials, we're going to do this, we're going to, determine if psilocybin can help people with PTSD or whatever that case was. So we sort of wanted to do something in the space, but with a compound that no one else was working with. And he identified Amanita. And quite honestly, Martin, when David brought it forward, I said, are you crazy? Like, we're a public company. We can't work with this mushroom. It's poisonous. And he goes, Jeff, that's the opportunity. Everybody just does a quick Google search and says, move on. It's the most recognized mushroom in the world. It's that red and white, beautiful mushroom from Super Mario Brothers, Alice in Wonderland. Yep. So everyone recognizes it, but it was just so misunderstood. So we took on the challenge. We rolled up our sleeves. We actually cold called Professor David Nutt, who's a professor at Imperial College UK, one of the top 3 thought leaders in the modern Renaissance. Him and Robin Carhart Harris are. He was actually his professor and suggested he study psilocybin. And, he's been a fantastic guy. And he wrote a paper on Amanita probably 30, 35 years ago on muskmol and GABA. And when we cold called him, he goes, wow, like, this is great. Yeah, I'd be interested. But I'm not going to join the board until I get a feeling of who you guys are, right? I don't want to put my reputation on the line until I know if you're serious. Yeah. And, we sort of followed his path and he helped guide us through. We did our preclinical studies. So we did everything to bring this product forward as a new dietary ingredient. And so preclinical studies, safety studies, toxicology studies, like you name it, we have a 600-page dossier with all the data to support that. And it was probably about 4 or 5 months before we were going to submit for the NDI that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of moving forward of GRAS, so generally regarded as safe. So an FDA-approved path to market for dietary supplements. And because Amanita had never been scheduled as a drug, we were able to work with it in that fashion. So our board and our contract research organization, KGK Sciences, said, listen, this is totally de-risked now. You guys can go to market tomorrow with all the data that you have. We can have we can find an independent review panel of scientists to sign off on everything. Like you've over tested for anything to be a GRAS. So our recommendation would be that you go that route first. And so we did a bit of a pivot, and that allowed us to bring Calm to market probably 6 months ahead of when we initially thought we would. And yes, we just haven't looked back since then. It's been great.
Yeah. So with the product, it is an extract of the muscimol. Is it pronouncing that correctly?
Muscimol. Yeah.
Muscimol. Okay.
Yeah. So, we're a public company, publicly traded. So, we have to protect, the work that we do and the shareholder money that we spend to get there. So what's unique about our extract, which we call AME-1, so the first extract of Amanita muscaria. And what's unique about it is our proprietary extraction process. So that's where our protection comes through. So all the work that we did was specific to our extract. And so it wasn't on Amanita muscaria mushroom. It wasn't on muscimol specifically. It was on the result of that extract through the process that we do. So what we've been able to do is bring this forward. And, now fast forward 2.5 years of having the product out, we're on the shelves at Erewhon. We're, getting into some other large niche, I guess large or niche, I'm not sure what the right word would be, but sort of like Erewhon type stores that prove to the consumer that this is a legitimate product. And they're also generally speaking sort of on the bleeding edge of what's coming to market, whether new supplements and new products. So we're very proud of that. We're selling on Amazon now as well. So those were big for us, just to convince people that this is gone through the proper safety protocols. This is a product that has gone through the compliance on that end at the retailer and has been able to sort of pass the bar at the highest level when it comes to bringing a product to market.
So I do know some people who gather and collect their own Amanita, and they dry it out and they eat it, or they make tinctures out of it. And I have seen people use the tinctures that they've made from the raw mushroom for sleep. But when we're dealing with a specific extract here, are there aspects of the mushroom that you guys are specifically excluding so that it's really targeting this compound that's working on the GABA system, which is so important for the sleep system? I mean, they get the GABA system and are regulating hormones and chemicals within the body. That's where it's acting on. So yeah, what's the difference here between the Calm product itself as this very specific extract versus, say, working with the whole mushroom?
Yeah. Well, first off, we love the whole community that exists and the foragers that are doing it and making their own. And there's a great community of people who are very passionate about it. And initially, I think some of them were concerned, there's this public company coming in and they're going to take all the mushrooms, or they're going to try to, prevent us from doing what we're doing. And not at all. We think it's great that people are out there. I've always sort of likened it to, you can make your own wine, or you can go to the store and buy your own wine. And the two can coexist. Right? It's not one or the other. Some people really enjoy foraging and coming home and boiling it and putting the lemon in and getting the pH level correct and making their own. And other people would just prefer to know that they can order something that's safe from a GMP facility, and it's going to be the same results every time they try it. And there's comfort in that. So the two coexist. And that's kind of where we fall. We're like, okay, we're going to take the ball and go that next level. We work with a company called Vantage Hemp out of Greeley, Colorado. They're our contract manufacturer. It's a CGMP facility. It's a very tricky mushroom to work with. It took us a long time to get to the point where we had this extract that was standardized because there's a lot of water in the mushrooms. And so oftentimes, if you were to look at some vendors online who sell their own extract, and, the mushroom is legal to be sold, but it's not legal to sell a product for human consumption. So that's kind of there's a gray area there. So you'll see some people online saying, for research purposes, or, not to be ingested, but DM me and I'll tell you how, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But the challenge there is they don't have a standardized product most of the time. And because there is so much moisture in it, if you heat it too much, you actually degrade muscimol, which is the primary compound that you're looking for. So our extraction process, just to answer your earlier question, we convert ibotenic acid into muscimol, and then we reduce the amount of muscarine. Those are the three main compounds in the mushroom that we're working with. And, our safety guidelines through our GRAS, generally regarded as safe, We have very specific ranges that ibotenic acid can be in, muscarine can be in, to end up with our extract. And we third-party test each batch. We third-party test the mushrooms as they come in, so we get the raw mushroom caps. We third-party batch those for heavy metals to make sure that it's Amanita muscaria and not, another Amanita mushroom. So it really comes down to, ensuring that you've got a safe product, and that's key for us.
Yeah. And personally, as someone consuming it, I appreciate the fact that it has the compound that I'm looking for from it to get the effects of sleep that my limited understanding of Amanita is that, it does produce, a various range of experiences for people. But usually when people are going about and gathering their own Amanita, that it's for other purposes, not necessarily for sleep. But I like the fact that you guys have really targeted that we're looking at how this works on the GABA system and creating, as you say, a consistent product for that. And I live in Southern Oregon. Amanita doesn't grow around here. You have to head north for that. So there's lots of people with sleep issues that are not necessarily in an area where they can just go gather their own Amanita mushrooms. And I've also seen products. I don't even know the company, but I've seen them sold as like magic mushroom gummies or something like that. And they're made with Amanita, and they're kind of sold under the title of magic mushroom, which is usually associated more with psilocybin mushroom. So it's even kind of misleading there, the way some people are labeling that as like Amanita is this hallucinogenic mushroom that somehow is related to the psilocybin experience. And, they're not at all similar in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all. Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge right now. So we started this 5 years ago. People didn't even know what Amanita was, right? Like it was like really pushing a rope. And it took a lot of education and getting people comfortable with it. Fast forward to today, you see it a lot more. To your point, there's gummies, there's chocolate bars, there's vapes. Unfortunately, there's some bad actors out there who are just, they see a loophole. Oh, Amanita muscaria is legal, so
right.
Let's do it. Actually, it's not legal to make a product for human consumption unless you go through the steps and paths that we have done. But there's a loophole. So, they can get through, they can get onto the shelves at smoke shops and other various retailers, and they can sell online. We've ordered a bunch. We've third-party tested them. Some of them don't have any muscimol in it. Some of them are just pure psilocybin, and they're just using it as a workaround to try to sell the product. Some of it is a shockingly high amount of ibotenic acid. They haven't done a process to convert the ibotenic acid into muscimol, so people have a higher degree chance of getting sick. Ibotenic acid can be quite nasty. It's said to be neurotoxin. I don't know. We haven't studied it ourselves. Like there's some debate on that right now. The study, I believe, that came up with that result was actually by injecting it directly sort of into the brains of mice. And so I think if you did that to anything, you'd have a negative effect, right?
Yeah.
But we do know that muscimol is the compound we wanted to work with. It interacts with your GABA. And, I think if you look at some of the synthetics that are out there as well, they have a very different experience than ours. And I think because we are full spectrum, even though we do convert ibotenic acid into muscimol, you still have the full amount of all the compounds on that mushroom in our extract. It's not just a pure, we haven't synthesized it. So there's a lot of stuff in the market right now. My fear is that as more and more of that happens, and if people get sick, Amanita gets painted with a brush and everybody sort of falls under that. It's our hope that, people will look for a product that they can say, okay, this has been tested, this is standardized, this is in a CGMP facility. It's not just some guys buying mushroom caps or powdered and believing that it is what the vendor says it is and turning it into a product. So there's some challenges right now. I think you just have to take the high road. You have to stay focused and bring to market a product that's safe and standardized and try to be a champion for it. And that's the approach that we're taking, like really just trying to convince people when people are looking for extract, bulk extract, we're a little pricier than others, but, it's because what you're getting has been through that whole process of coming up with a safe product that is safe for human consumption, and every time is going to be consistent.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely want to just chime in that as a customer, that's exactly what I'm looking for in a product like this. And, we're at this point in the psychedelic renaissance where a lot of people complain about, the marketing of products and, people just want to make money. And I will say that as someone, like I mentioned, who has a really debilitating chronic sleep disorder, that if I'm looking for something to help, I want something that's consistent. I want something that's been tested. I want something that's gone through whatever process you need to go through to be able to say this is a legal Amanita muscaria extract that you can consume and is safe. That's what I want. I want somebody to be on the business end of it that actually is producing not only a consistent product, but a product that actually does what it's sold to do. And that has been my experience of working with Calm, that I've really appreciated that it has been very consistent. Like I said, it's been about 2.5 months now. So, I'm a bit more than halfway through my third bottle of the larger bottles. And I am using a little bit more than what is recommended on the label because my situation is rather severe and debilitating. And also just in echoing what you were saying earlier is that, I'm not working through depression or anxiety or psychological trauma or anything like that, but just as a regular human being leading a regular life, that when you are plagued by chronic sleep deprivation, it impacts everything else in your life. Your ability to be present, your ability to get work done, your ability to process your emotions. I mean, it's so significant. And even though I am very much an extreme case, that as I certainly have learned in going through my own sleep disorder, that like the majority of Americans say they don't get enough sleep every night. And lots of people are looking for things that will help, and that even in the world of pharmaceuticals and prescriptions, that a lot of that stuff doesn't work for a lot of people. And I'm one of those people where, I've been through a lot of different medications, and most of it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, we're seeing that more and more, over the last, I guess, sort of post-COVID world where people are looking for alternatives to pharmaceutical, really. You've seen that sort of backlash. With ours, we really look at it, and when we started the company, some people said, well, why aren't you doing like a recreational gummy and going after that market? It's legal. The reality is people suffer from sleep-related issues, and that's a daily occurrence. And so from a business case perspective, it's like, well, I could sell something that they're going to use maybe one weekend a month or 2 weekends a month, or we could provide them with a product that's going to help solve a real problem and do good for society, and something that will become part of a daily routine. And so for us, that's really where, like, let's just focus, let's stay the path. Let's not, try to be edgy and a psychedelic trip type, trying to make it like that. And we really stayed the course. We just announced last week that we will be coming out with a gummy this summer. But again, that's very much just like listening to our consumers who are saying, really like the effect. I just don't enjoy taking a tincture 30 minutes before going to bed, or I don't really enjoy the taste of the tincture. And so we'll have a gummy coming out. I think the first flavor is watermelon. So it'll be easier to consume and take. And people seem like that's a form factor that they really enjoy when it comes to consuming, whether it be vitamins or supplements. So, but again, it's kind of just like, let's stay the course. We know our audience. We know that people are the people that use it and listen to their body. And I think that's a big thing as well. As you go through on your journey with this beyond the 3 months, you might get to a point where you're like, oh, wow, I actually went 3 nights without taking it and I slept without any problem. And then the fourth night be lying down and go, oh, man, what's different? Okay, I haven't taken Calm in a couple of days. Whereas I think I've probably consumed more AME-1 extract than anybody as the co-founder and guinea pig. I used to take it every day. I take it now once a week. just when I notice that I'm not falling asleep as easy. And as you know, it's not a sleeping pill. You don't take it 30 minutes before bed and then you're knocked out. If your intention is to sleep, it just makes falling asleep easier. And there's a bit of a window too. So if in that 20, 30 minute window, you haven't put yourself in a position where it's going to be easy to fall asleep, you're through it. And then there's actually a little energy boost that comes with it as well. So, it's really kind of special. And what I tell people, like if all of a sudden, your evening's changed and you've got to get up because you got an email that you've got to do something, it's not like you can't function. So it's a very easy tool, if you will, for that, because it does allow for you to pivot if you have to.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things there I'd love to comment on. First, the gummies, and I'm very happy to hear that this is an avenue that you guys are pursuing. For me, it's not about the taste. I mean, it's not like the greatest tasting thing, but it's not awful or anything like that. I mean, I would never discourage anyone from taking it based on the taste alone. It has kind of this mushroomy sort of flavor. If you've ever had ayahuasca, I mean, this is like candy compared to ayahuasca. So in terms of like where we go on to rank it on the flavor spectrum, I wouldn't describe there as being anything wrong with it, but it definitely does have like just a earthy mushroom kind of flavor to it. But my biggest reason for being interested in a gummy is that once you've opened the bottle, it does require refrigeration, and then that becomes difficult to travel with it. So like recently, my daughter was graduating from the University of San Diego.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And flew down to San Diego, and actually I did not take my comm with me, and definitely had more trouble getting to sleep those nights down in San Diego just because my bottle was already open, and then I was thinking, well, I'm going to like bring a cooler on the plane, or, what am I going to do? Which I could have done, but I decided to I'll just try and go a few nights without it. But it definitely has been helping me. So that was one of the things I wanted to suggest was well, can you guys come up with a product that doesn't need to be refrigerated so I could travel with it more easily? And definitely I will be getting some of the gummies. And also with what you said that it's definitely not debilitating. So my experience of it is, you take the droppers, and then about 20 to 30 minutes in, it produces very pleasant sleepy feelings, which then can lead to sleep. I don't always go to sleep right away. I mean, that's a big part of my problem. But it doesn't leave you incapacitated. I don't quote unquote feel drugged. Like some sleeping aids, like that in 2019, I completely lost the ability to sleep, and I went 10 consecutive days without sleep. And I was being prescribed all these different prescriptions, and what ended up happening is I felt extraordinarily drugged. I was really high and wide awake, and then it was like that for hours, and it was super uncomfortable. And now even I've been working on progressing in my whole sleep routine ever since then. I mean, that was the worst part of it. And most of 2019 was awful with sleep. Most of 2020 was really awful with sleep. And I'm in a much better place now. But prior to starting to use Calm, just to share some of my personal experience, is initially getting to sleep is a big hurdle for me. And what would happen is I would have these experiences where I don't naturally get sleepy feelings. Like they just don't arise. And it's been that way ever since I was a kid for the most part. But when I'm taking these other sleep aids, what I would experience is this sensation of like drifting down into sleep, but it would happen very suddenly. So it's almost like the bottom is dropping out of my experience and I'm in bed and kind of like, whoa, that's startling. And I'm not going to sleep, so it's actually waking me up, and I'd have to go through a series of these events every night before I'd actually fall asleep. And so what I've been noticing with Calm is that on some nights, I really distinctly can feel the effects of the mushroom, where it's like, oh, this is so pleasant and nice and dreamy. And then Other nights, I don't necessarily feel that, but then I will eventually fall asleep, and then I wake up sometime later in the night, and then I will be able to notice, oh, I didn't go through that bottom is dropping out experience that had been plaguing me for the past 5 years now. And so even that little bit right there is like, oh, I mean, I can't even express what a relief it is to not have to go through this really awful experience every night at the beginning of my night. And even if Calm isn't actually putting me to sleep in that moment, I'm not having these events in these past 2.5 months that I've been working with Calm. And so just, it's making me a little bit emotional because this has really been fucking hard to deal with. And it's just really, it is such a relief to find it really helps. And that when I do feel it, it's nice and it's pleasant and just like, oh, fucking thank God that there's something that actually helps in a way that isn't, fucking me up more in some ways. And so
I am so happy to hear that. I'm glad the ad found you, and I'm glad you clicked the button and gave it a try. Just circling back to your point. So we recommend refrigeration. You don't have to. You can take it on a plane. I keep my bottle in my bathroom because, my bathroom's upstairs, my fridge is downstairs. So I'll leave it on my vanity. Our recommendation would be if you're using it occasionally and you're hoping it's going to last 12 months, then we would recommend refrigeration. If you're going to use a bottle like you're doing, going through a bottle in a month, you have no issue whatsoever. You could leave it, unless, you're in Texas and your air conditioning's gone and your house is going to be 110 degrees, but otherwise you're fine. It doesn't require that. It's not a necessity.
Okay, well, that's great to know. Yeah. And I'm very interested in your description that you were taking it every night and now you're taking it more seldom than that. I hope I reach that point. I mean, that's my overall goal. And unfortunately, even with using Calm, I am still using a variety of other products that I've had to find, like using a cocktail of things, which is like far from ideal. But that's what I need in order to make it through the night and be functional during the day. But I do hope to reach that point where I can take even less and even fewer days. And that my sleep disorder, it goes through these weird fluctuations where, like in the past few nights have not gone so well for me, but like the 2 weeks before that, everything was going great. And now I'm kind of in this weird little dip that seems to happen, which there have been lots of fluctuations over this past 5 years. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to completely get off sleep aids because of this, but that is what I'm hoping for. And it feels like, and maybe this is just my perception, that it has felt like things have been more consistently good while I've been using Calm, even if, as I say, it's not necessarily putting me to sleep, because I still have nights where it takes 3-4 hours to actually fall asleep.
Right. Yep.
So in developing the product, obviously you've used it. What was the process of actually experimenting with it, getting reports, using human subjects? I mean, how did that work?
It was a lot of trial and error. It was, I tell you, the taste of our first extract, it was like tar-like, and I tell you, you think there's an earthy taste. It was incredible. And we sort of went through that whole process, like, oh my gosh, we can't sell a product that tastes like this, especially when someone's trying to go to bed. And should we make it taste like strawberry or something? And we sort of said no, like it is a mushroom based extract, and you don't necessarily have to mask that and hide it, but you want it to be palatable, that people are, will be able to, I wouldn't say enjoy, but you can easily tolerate it without, thinking, oh my gosh, without dreading it. And so it's kind of that fine line of how do you put a product forward that people aren't going to think it's fake, because if all of a sudden we came to market with, this extract, first time people have ever seen the legal Amanita muscaria extract, and it tastes like strawberry, you're kind of like, what? So that was the reason for sort of staying that path and just sweetening it a little bit so that it wasn't too pungent. But yeah, it took a lot of trial and error, a lot of, working within our group with our CRO and trying and tweaking and coming up with something that was within our extraction process, right? So that's our patent and our grass. So falling within that, but tweaking it so that we could make it better tasting and more efficient. But before we move on, Martin, one other thing I think is key. It's so special. We're just scratching the surface with this mushroom, and as we grow as a company, and when we have additional capital available for more R&D, we would like to do that because we know that it also has anti-inflammatory qualities. And personally, like my anecdotal story would be 3 years ago, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have to hold on to my railing walking down the stairs from my bedroom to the main floor. My knees were so sore. I was a ski racer and, just getting older and 50. I just thought, okay, this is my future. This is it. You beat yourself up for years. And fast forward to today, I don't even think about it. I just walk down the stairs. And the only thing that's changed in that is, aside from getting 3 years older, is using Amanita, using AME-1 on a regular basis as part of my routine. So I personally believe that, with continued use of this, the side effect benefits that you can get from it, the anti-inflammatory, because it interacts with it's a GABA agonist, and it interacts with your GABA, similar to alcohol. I was jumping on the trendy bandwagon and did dry January. And when I would go out with friends, I would take a bottle of Calm and I would have what we call a Calm and Coke. So I'd order a Coca-Cola and I would put 4 milliliters of Calm in with a Coca-Cola, and I'd have 2 or 3 of those while my friends were having, a rum and Coke or a beer or whatever they were doing. And it gave a similar feeling of being drunk. But the beauty is there's no hangover. There's none of the toxins that you have with alcohol. And it's actually allows you to lessen the cravings. So you'll see there's some talk in the community where people use it to wean themselves off of benzos or alcohol or smoking. And I think there's something really special about the way it just sort of reduces those cravings for the others, because I guess you're still stimulating the GABA. So it's kind of neat. And we definitely do want to do more research and sort of look at that. But, as we talk to our clients and our consumers who are using it regularly, we do ask them, like, hey, if you've gone 6 months with this, have you noticed any benefits on these other areas? And we're starting to get that feedback. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. And especially for people who are using benzodiazepines, I would say that it is somewhat of a comparable phenomenological experience where, like, when it's coming on, there's that sense of like, oh, that's nice, and oh, that's easy. But obviously the big problem with benzodiazepines is that people build up tolerance to it, and that getting off of benzodiazepines can be very, very difficult for people. And it can also produce a toxic shock where people can potentially die, like if they're just cutting benzos completely out. So it does require a weaning off process. And so, I would definitely recommend it for anybody who feels that they need a benzodiazepine, that this produces somewhat of a similar kind of experience. But again, for me, it's been very, very pleasant. And I very much enjoy the feeling, which, again, when we're talking about sleep, is like actually hitting that point of, oh, I feel restful. Oh, I'm relaxing now. That, my shorthand for my sleep disorder is that I'd say, like, look, my off switch is just broken. It's just like the damn thing won't go down. And that when I've used medication, it's like forcing it down, and then it just pops back up again. So that actual act of just getting to sleep has been very elusive for me. And so something that produces this dreamy kind of quality is just so valuable, because that's the signal that your body receives, like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now.
Yeah. It really is. They talk a lot in psychedelics about set and setting. And with this mushroom, I think it is like, if your set and setting is your intentions are to sleep, and you're in an environment where you would sleep, like your bed or on the couch with a blanket, and it does make it very easy to lull yourself into that. Like, it just sort of happens naturally. And so I think it's pretty special. I just like to say, like, we're not making claims about being a way to wean off of benzos. That's nothing that we are saying. It's people in the community, people who use Amanita and love different Facebook group chats and stuff. So just sort of sharing that. We're very cautious about, what we do say, because, you can really get yourself in trouble with the FDA if you start making claims. So we're suggestive of, it's not a sleep aid. It's to promote restfulness and to help you in that way. We do rely on, feedback from our consumers to give us positive reviews and share with us their experience, because that's a way for us to say more without saying it. Right. So when other people say it, we can repost it without getting in trouble. So it's kind of, working within the boundaries and doing that. But yeah, listen, I'm excited for you. I'm excited to check in with you in 6 months' time and see, have you been able to taper off a little bit and use less and still benefit from it? And are you starting to notice any other benefits from the regular use? So it'd be great to touch base with you again on it.
Back there. Have you encountered any evidence of like building up a tolerance or resistance over time? I know that that's a big thing with psilocybin mushrooms, that, if you take them every day, eventually they're going to stop doing anything for you.
Yeah, I think so. When I first had our extract and I tried it for the first time, it was a pretty special moment for me. Multiple things were converging. We'd spent 2 years doing the R&D and getting everything there. We finally had an extract, and we'd raised $6 million to do this, and now it's like we have something. It better work, right? It was one of those things. Yeah. So I tried it, and I'm not a spiritual type person. So for this industry, when you start off these industries, you oftentimes will get people who've been working with the plants or the mushrooms, and so I was kind of coming into it like, oh, this guy is from finance, and I laid down and I tried it, and within that 30 minutes, I felt this like warm emotional blanket wrap me.
Yeah.
And I just fell asleep, and I had the best sleep. And I woke up, I said to my wife, like, it works. Like, I was like, woo-hoo-hoo,
yeah,
it works. And I said, and I had a spiritual experience. Like, this was the first time that I had something like that. And I tell you, it was incredible. It only happened that once, and there's a woman in the Amanita community. Her moniker is Amanita Dreamer. Teresa, she and I spoke quite a bit when we were starting out, because she was excited and nervous. Okay, public company coming. Are they going to try and shut everyone down? What are they going to do? But over the years, we built a friendship and a mutual respect. And I shared with her that, and she said, well, that's, she is very spiritual. And she was like, well, that's the mushroom welcoming you. And that's, and so it was kind of neat. Like, for me, it was kind of neat, because I just had never experienced anything like that before. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, my first night with Calm, my bottle came in the mail, and, I'm reading the directions, and it says 2 dropperfuls. So then, I shook the bottle up and I opened it up, and the other 2 bottles I've gotten haven't been this way, where the entire dropper was filled all the way from the tip all the way up to the rubber at the top. Yep. And so I opened it up and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's 1 dropper. And I did that. And then I went and I squeezed the top and got some more. I was like, oh, well, that's not full the way it was before. So I'll do that. And then did like 3 more times.
Yeah.
And that was a large dose. And I am someone who, I think, I've actually been looking at this recently, where they've looked at people's imaginations, and that some people just don't have a visual imagination, and then other people have a very, very hyper visual imagination, where they can really distinctly visualize things in front of themselves, whereas other people are like, no, I got nothing, right? So there's definitely a spectrum there, and I think I'm somewhere on the higher end of the spectrum. So anyway, I took quite a few droppers full, got in bed, and about 30 minutes later, this, as you say, sort of this warm, very comforting feeling, and then I'm also feeling like, oh, I'm kind of tripping now, and this is actually really interesting, and this is not psilocybin, because, psilocybin always has kind of a little bit of an edge to it, that like you never really know what direction it's going to go at any given moment, and it can change really quickly, whereas this was just like, oh, this is super pleasant, and it was visual in a very unique way. I can't really compare it to any other kind of psychedelic experience. So I don't think it would have that effect on everyone because, again, I think I'm a little bit high on the visual imagination spectrum. But I didn't fall asleep for like 3 or 4 hours, but I had a really pleasant time. And then I finally did fall asleep. And then when I woke up in the morning, it was like I felt great. So it wasn't like one of these nights where, oh my God, I'm in bed and it's like 4 hours later and I'm still not asleep and really disturbed by it. So it was very.
Did you have any dreams that you remember that first time?
When I woke up in the morning, I could definitely remember some dreams, and they did seem particularly trippy, but I can't recall them now at this point.
No, but I just like the remembering. Oh wow, that was I had some vivid dreams, and I had some because it's really neat that way, where you wake up. Most people will say they wake up feeling energized. So if you think about using a melatonin or a CBD for helping you sleep, people will often talk about like a hangover effect the next day where they feel kind of groggy. Whereas when using Calm, people will say that they feel energized. They woke up and they're just sort of like, let's go. And I think we're hopeful. There's some consumers that have the Aura Ring, so we're trying to get them to share with us some of that data because we think you're in a deeper sleep longer, which could be attributed to that. So we'll see. We're hoping to compile some data on that front.
Yeah, I used an Aura Ring for a while in 2019, and I eventually got rid of it because it was coming back with readings of not only was your sleep completely broken, but you had 5 minutes of deep sleep last night, and that was just like so discouraging. It's
depressing.
Like, it's like I just feel so unhealthy with my sleep, so I had to get rid of that. But unfortunately, I'm not at a point where I ever wake up feeling energized. I usually wake up just like, oh my God. But this is what I've noticed in the past couple of months is that I feel more ready to actually start my day earlier than before. And like you mentioned, CBD, I had been using CBN quite a bit, and I found that was helping me get to sleep. But as you say, I would often kind of wake up like, okay, now I need 4 hours before I can really even get started. So I do feel that Calm actually fits better in terms of being able to get up, get myself organized, and get the day going. So again, it's a product I'm really grateful for. I'm really glad that this is there. I have absolutely no hesitations at all about recommending it to people. And even for me, because my sleep is such a major issue that, I've thought of like, well, I probably would enjoy Calm during the day, but I just want to save it for the nighttime. It's like, this is like my big gun, right? It's like, so I want to save that for what I really need it for. And for me, that's definitely sleep, but I could see enjoying it at other times. Certainly.
Well, I tell you, it was, I did dry January and it was so easy. I did dry February because I thought, why not? I feel good and I'm not missing anything. And I think the ability to substitute it for alcohol made that easier for me. And I think, when you look at that sort of push that's happening right now where people are looking for alternatives to alcohol and there's a lot of mocktails and zero beer and zero spirits, but you don't have that feeling that you're looking for when you're being social. And, THC really didn't solve that as a recreational substitute to alcohol because, if you're a group of 4 and 3 people are drinking alcohol and one person has a THC drink or a gummy, in 20, 30 minutes, they're on a different planet and they're just not having the same sessionable experience. So I think it's interesting to see how it can be used in different ways for different occasions. Sleep for us is the primary right now. We see that as just everybody struggles with it. My daughter, she's just graduating high school and, she'll use Calm on nights that she's just too anxious. She can't fall asleep. She's got, a test coming up or she's late with a paper.
Yeah.
You're beating yourself up. So you go everywhere from, 18 up to 80-year-olds. Everybody suffers. And so, again, when we sort of looked at it from a business case, it was, well, this is the largest target audience that you could have. And, for the cost of a coffee, you're giving someone a solution. So, if you start your morning with a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you can end your day with, 2, 3, 4 mil of calm, and now you've got your start and stop routine. Like it's just you can implement it. And you had talked about the doses. That recommendation was really, again, we wanted something that wouldn't be overwhelming, because I think as a new supplement coming to market, people not familiar with it, if they tried it the first time and it was too much, then they would never try it again.
Yeah.
And so we say start with 2 mil. That should work. It's a very, very low dose. Our grass would allow for us to go 10x, probably 15x from where we are. So, from a safety perspective, you can go, I've had a whole bottle in a day when I was, dry January, February, go out, you'd sort of consume that and have some drinks. So you're well within that to do. I wouldn't recommend it out of the gate. You'd want to understand how your body interacts with it. But, for people like yourself, if you are feeling, okay, I need, this is working, but I think I'd like to try a little more, you're well within the safety zone to take 4, 6, 8 if you wanted to sort of go there. It just comes to a cost perspective as well, and we're cognizant of that, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. We're learning a lot as well. And the great thing is, as we grow and we reach a larger consumer audience, we get more feedback from them as well. Which led us to the gummies, which will lead us to other form factors, and which will continue the innovation.
Yeah. Well, I would say for anybody out there who wanted to try it, that I do think probably starting at the 2 droppers is like, that's a good start. Like I mentioned, I'm using 3 right now. I definitely could use more because my sleep situation is really difficult. But there have been a couple nights where I haven't quite gotten to sleep. So then I've gotten up and I've taken a couple more. But because I'm kind of high on that visualization spectrum, when I've done that, I've found like, okay, I'm not asleep, but I'm seeing a lot of really interesting stuff, which is, it's not necessarily so bad, because if you're still resting, I mean, that's really one of the keys around sleep disorders is if you're still resting, you're still actually getting at least some benefits. And, it's the kind of thing that I'd be interested in hearing other people's feedback on, of like, do they have a threshold where it starts to get more visual for them and then maybe potentially does not lead to sleep? That just seems to be an effect that I have, but I've also would say that I felt that it's very safe. I don't feel like, oh my God, I've taken too much, like this is a problem.
Right.
And also just to contrast it again with psilocybin mushrooms. I mean, if you're looking for a small dose of psilocybin, if you go over that, it's like, oh, I've done it now. And that's not my experience with calm in any way. It's just like, oh, I might not be sleeping. I'm still feeling very pleasant, but I would really want to emphasize how pleasant the experience is.
That's great. Happy to hear that. Yeah, for sure. I haven't noticed any visualizations for me, so maybe I'm very low on that sort of on that scale. But certainly on the dream side, for sure. You get, for me, that's been a lot of fun actually, because prior to it, I wouldn't even remember dreams, and now sort of waking up and go, wow, I had this incredible dream last night. So.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed some interesting effects on that side as well. Usually my dreams wash out after I've been up for a little while, but I definitely have woken up with like, whoa, that was pretty interesting.
That's great.
Yeah. So gummies are on the way. I don't actually need to keep it fully refrigerated. I can travel with it. Oh, thank goodness. Because I have a trip coming up to Iowa in a couple weeks, and I've really been thinking about, what am I going to do with that? So I guess I'll take my bottle. I'll be happy, be a happy camper.
I've never had a problem at the airports. I was at a conference in Miami flying back to Toronto, and I had 300 sample bottles. There were 5 ml bottles, and I had them in my knapsack. I had about 100 coming back. I took 300 down, and coming back, they just said, what is this? I said, oh, it's a supplement. It's a mushroom supplement to help you sleep. Off you go. So, even though it's got the red mushroom on it, that was my concern. Like, they're going to look at this and go, oh, they think it's a psychedelic mushroom, because that's the imagery that's used oftentimes. But there's no issue. And I've flown. Oh man, I've flown pretty much everywhere I go. I take it with me. So
yeah, well,
it's been an issue.
I'll be doing the same. Anything else coming down the pipe for Psyched Wellness? Or
Yeah, well, as I said, there's more innovation coming. We're just getting to that point now where we feel we wanted to just do Amanita initially, because we wanted people to try it and understand the effect they're feeling was from AME-1 or extract and muscimol. But now we feel like Calm is that sort of champion. We've done that. We've got that to market. So, we are trying to work with some other compounds that we think would be complementary and coming out with a mix. And so I think, as we move forward, you'll start to see us make some announcements like that. I have to be a little cagey about it, sorry, because we're a public company. So, anything that's material, if it's not publicly disclosed, I can't share it with you. So there is some more innovation coming, and, we're excited to continue to champion the mushroom. We think it's, as I said, we've just peeled sort of the first layer or two of the onion. There's a lot more to come from it. And I'm so pleased to see the consumer being open to it, being the mainstream media talking about it. And I sure hope that, a couple bad actors don't ruin it for everyone and get it painted with a bad brush. Look, if you're out there and you're voting with your dollars, look for the companies that are doing it properly, that are doing it with, CGMB facilities and their third-party testing and, bringing out a standardized product. And I think that's really the way for us to make sure that it moves forward and that people can enjoy it and the benefits from it.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the road, rather than jumping to Amanita, oh yeah, that's poisonous, that's going to kill you. Or, oh, that's the Mario mushroom. Maybe somewhere down the road, it'll be, yeah, that's the mushroom that helps you sleep. That's
our goal. Like it's so, you talk and you know anecdotally firsthand because you suffer with sleep. Some of the emails that we receive from our consumers are so raw, and I guess you just it is debilitating. If you're going 10 days without sleep, you're desperate. And the information that they will share, the desperation that's in that, and to know that we're able to help, and it doesn't help everyone. For some, there's a small portion of the people that muscimol doesn't interact with them. It doesn't have that effect.
Yeah.
We see that that percentage is probably about 2% where we get feedback from our sales where people said, this has done nothing for me. Really sorry. Like, everybody is different and your body interacts differently with the various compounds, but by and large, the larger part of society, it seems to work well. And I tell you, the feedback we get when people, my husband hasn't slept in 3 years and he slept through the night and he's not tossing and turning and he changed their lives. Right. And it feels great. You feel really like, putting a human side to the business side and just feel like, okay, we're doing something good, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys deserve it. I'm really happy to be on the customer side of things and be able to have this conversation with you and to be able to personally just say thank you and the rest of the Psyched Wellness team for going through the effort to making this product available, because it has definitely helped. Again, I'm a complex situation, so it's not like it's just magically solved everything. Nothing has done that, but this is, if I had to give it up, it'd be like, no, don't take my calm away. That it really, really is making a difference. It's really helping. And for other people with sleep issues, chances are my sleep situation is much worse than yours for anyone who's listening. And I think my audience is pretty familiar with my situation. And so I would really want to encourage people, like, try it out. And hopefully you're not one of this small percent of people that it doesn't interact well with or produce effects for. But I think for the majority of people, if you're having difficulty with sleep, this would definitely be my number one recommendation at this point, having worked with so many different products and so many different medicines and so many different herbs and all different kinds of stuff, that this is definitely top of the line, unquestionably.
Oh, I love it. Thank you very much. Like that says more than anything that I could ever put in print or an ad when someone is sharing that experience. So thank you for doing that. And listen, let's talk with Sam. Let's get, I don't want to take away from your being impartial, but we have an affiliate program. If you have an audience that that would purchase from this, we'd love for you to have a benefit from that and sign you up on our affiliate program. You'd have a link that you could share with a code. If you're open to it, I'd be happy to introduce that to Sam and have her get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'd be totally comfortable with that.
Cool. Yeah, likewise. And thank you so much for your time. And let's schedule a conversation to touch base in another 3 months' time and see sort of where you're landing and how things are going at 6 months and catch up on everything.
All right. Well, sounds great. Thank you so much for your time today, Jeffrey. I'm really glad that we can make this happen again. We've been speaking with Jeffrey Stevens. For those of you listening, it's psyched-wellness.com. That's where you're going to find Calm out there on the web, and it's got my recommendation.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, Martin. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you.
You too. Cheers.
Okay.